Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. Entitled Mother Finds Out She's a Reason I Will Never Have Kids. I have a neighbor who is super entitled and she has been asking my fiancé some pretty annoying questions. Again, I'm usually working when she decides to talk to my roommate and fiancé about stuff. She has tricked my roommate many times to help her on his days off, which I have said she needs to be paying him before she even thinks of depriving him of sleep. He works overnights as a manager at a grocery store doing restock. So you will see why I get annoyed. It is his time to recharge. Her latest antics nearly injured our cat because her son, who is developmentally delayed, doesn't understand he could hurt an animal. My roommate was watching The Nightmare Child. I can tell you he is. I had the day off and my roommate was asleep upstairs. Fiancé was working from home and I was writing in the kitchen while eating lunch. So here is my cast. Me, fiancé, our entitled mother who is a neighbor, nightmare child, and my roommate. I look up to see the entitled kid, he's around 10, but mentally he's like 4 or 5, and I slide the door open. Hello?
I'm here for my kitty.
He points at my cat. I'm sorry, but she's not your kitty.
She is. You share her.
I'm sorry, but she doesn't want to play. I shut the sliding glass door. This time he kicks it and demands we let our cat out. My cat runs off and my fiancé looks up and takes off his headset. What's going on? This kid thinks our cat is his and we have to give her to him. Okay? He walks up to the door and tells the kid he has to go home and that he is not allowed to boss me around. The kid storms off and not 10 minutes later, the entitled mother is knocking at our front door. The kid is back at the back door and kicking the frame as before. My fiancé answers the front door and I only hear an interchange of them arguing. She says,
"Just give us your cat for a few hours until he gets bored."
No, this is our cat. He groans and shakes his head.
The cat isn't yours. Get your roommate right now.
Our roommate is sleeping and I literally tell her that over my shoulder.
It's the middle of the day. Surely he must be awake.
With your shrieks and your kids kicking, he may as well be. By now, our roommate is up on the landing staring down and tells the woman that the cat is mine and not his.
Well, give us the cat and...
I'm not giving you my baby. She isn't a toy and most certainly not something I will part with.
Cats aren't babies. My son is.
You are the exact reason I don't want kids. I don't want to turn into an uncaring witch. My screams scare the kid who starts to cry like I somehow injured him. The roommate tells her, "Now you can go." He shuts the door and tells us he is never helping her again. And he apologizes to me. Thankfully, we did not have any retaliation from her or her child after that. Next story. Entitled Kid Hurts an Aggressive Service Dog. The entitled bearing goes supernova and the police gets called. I recently saw a story about entitled kids and horses and it reminded me of an incident that took place at the end of 2019, pre-COVID. Backstory. A close friend of mine was adopted by a lovely old couple who had already adopted a girl who had been blinded and had major scarring around her eyes. That is important. The couple also had big dogs, the latest generation of which was a cross between a half husky, half German shepherd. They had puppies with an Irish wolfhound, so very big, very hairy and absolutely gorgeous doggos. They had one of these puppies trained to be a blind assistant dog for their blind daughter, as well as being trained for general help around the house. During this process, the dog got very close with the blind girl, and he got very protective. Also important. Anyways, on to the story. The cast. All names are fake. Bella, my friend. Zoe, the blinded girl, my friend's adopted sister. And there is also the adopted father, Echo, the service doggo, and of course the entitled mother and her brat. The incident. I had gone round to Bella's house to see her and to get her help with some school work I was doing. After finishing the work, me, Bella and Zoe decided to go out for a walk and take Echo with us to give him his daily exercise. As this would involve going outside, Zoe put on a headscarf and very large dark sunglasses to hide her scars as well as taking her white cane. Together we walked to a nearby park/playing field and let Echo off the lead to run him around. After about 20 minutes we noticed a typical Karen and her hill spawn come onto the field. I called Echo over and put his lead back on him, and also put his service vest on, a high vest with service dog, do not bit written in big letters on both sides. So it is obvious he is working. Echo, being very well trained, immediately went into service dog mode and was helping Zoe navigate around the field. We went and sat on some benches outside the play area, about 10 meters away from Karen. Echo sat down about 2 meters away directly in front of our bench. We were just chilling and chatting when we hear squealing and running footsteps. The entitled kid had seen Echo. Before we could react, the kid had sprinted over and charged straight into Echo, knocking him over and obviously hurting him as he yelped and was frantically wriggling as the kid tried to pin him to the ground while he's shouting,
Mommy, mommy, look at the doggy.
Karen didn't move or even look up from her phone. By now, Echo was in obvious distress and Bella stood and grabbed the kid, lifting him off the dog and putting him down away from him while telling him to please do not touch our dog. The entitled brat screamed and shouted incoherently, and as soon as Bella put him down, he punched her straight in the stomach, which made her drop the kid and try to tackle Echo again. This time, however, he was ready and shied away, causing the kid to trip and start crying. As if summoned by the cries of her hellspawn, the entitled mother leaped to her feet and began screaming at us.
What are you doing? I can't believe you'd hurt a child.
All the shouting was freaking Zoe out and she started shaking. Bella tells her, Ma'am, your child attacked my sister's service dog. Please, can you take him away? Karen looked at Echo's vest and said,
Well, you shouldn't bring your service dog to a public park then. You brat.
Unfortunately, Zoe chose this moment to speak. Guys, can we get out of here? The entitled mother saw Zoe's headscarf and glasses and launched into a tirade about disrespect and terrorists.
And look at me when I'm talking to you.
And she grabbed Zoe's headscarf and glasses, pulled them off of her, and threw them on the ground. Two things happened nearly instantly. Karen began screaming in horror at the scars on Zoe's face, and the entitled kid launched himself at Echo again. This time, Echo snapped. He had been attacked and hurt, and now his child was being threatened. Echo sideswiped the kid in mid-air, then shoulder charged into the entitled mother before standing in front of Zoe, showing his teeth and barking. Still screaming, the entitled mother pulled out her phone and called the police while dragging her child away and yelling at us that,
You're all going to jail for scaring my child and bringing that into a public place.
Zoe was understandably traumatized, so we rang her father to come and help us. Their father and the police arrived at the same time. He came over to talk to us, and the police officer took the entitled mother's statement, then came to talk to us. After talking to Bella and their father, the police officer asked if Echo had bitten the kid. We all said no, just knocked him over. The police officer then said that the kid had cuts on his arms. Turns out the mother had deliberately cut her child to make it look like Echo had bitten him. Whilst we were being questioned, we had been taken about 5 meters away from the bench. The entitled mother had let the kid go back to the park. Zoe was still sitting on the bench, and Echo was laying next to her. The kid decided to try again, and came charging over to Echo. This time, however, their father stepped in and told him that he couldn't touch the dog, as he was a service dog. The entitled mother saw Bella and Zoe's father talking to her child and flew into a rage, shouting about assault, and then shoved their father out of the way, grabbed Echo's lead, knocked Zoe to the floor, and tried to run, all in about 5 seconds. As the cops ran to grab her, Echo launched himself into the air to run back to Zoe, pulling the entitled mother over, making her graze her arms as she was being detained. She was shouting about how Echo was an aggressive dog and needed to be put down, only to be told she was being arrested for assault and public order offenses. Long story short, the entitled mother got fined and 8 months in jail, and she had to pay Zoe and her father each something close to £5,000 for damages. Zoe still hates going out and had 2 fractured ribs from that evil kid. The dad came to pick up the entitled kid and has since divorced Karen and got full custody of the evil kid. 6 months after the incident, he went to my friend's house with the kid to force him to apologize, which the kid did. Then explained that his mom told him that was how he should act around dogs. Hopefully the dad can make sure he grows up not to be so entitled. Next story. Entitled mother-in-law lived with us for 6 months rent-free. So I have a lot of stories about this woman, but today I'm going to focus on the 6 months she lived with us. Little backstory. My husband and I got pregnant very early on in our relationship. I told him he wasn't allowed to propose while I was pregnant because I wanted to make sure he was marrying me, not the baby. It ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. We bought a house, had our son, then got engaged. My mother-in-law hasn't had a stable job since my husband was in middle school, lives off the government, and has somehow assumed responsibility for several of her friends' children, plus her other grandchild. She has diabetes she doesn't manage, which resulted in her losing most of her toes on her right foot. 3 months before the wedding, my mother-in-law, my 10-year-old niece, and 3-year-old nephew, not actual relation but we'll say nephew for simplicity, got kicked out of the house they were staying at and showed up at our door. We live in a 3-bed, 1-bath house. Not very big. Still, we made it work until they found another place. I gave my mother-in-law the spare room and put all 3 kids in a room together. Of course, at the same time she moved in with us, the government assistance she had been receiving was cut off. Long story for another day. So her only assistance financially to us were her food stamps and watching our son. I picked up a second job and my husband picked up extra hours. During her time with us, she treated my husband's car like it was a community car. And despite us telling her we don't want smoke in our house or cars, she was caught several times breaking those rules. My tip money would disappear from my purse. My nice camera disappeared. She would sell part of her food stamps. Instead of doing anything productive, it would go towards cigarettes or weird random knickknacks she tried to display in our house. I said hell no, they were awful. As I said, this was before our wedding. She kept offering to throw me a bridal shower, which I declined knowing she couldn't afford it, and I hate her friends. All I asked was that she buy her own dress. 2 weeks before the wedding, when no dress was bought, I used a gift card from my actual bridal shower and took her shopping. She hated everything, complained the shop was too expensive and ugly and wanted to go somewhere else. Again, I was using a gift card. The whole experience was just awful. We finally settled on a floral dress she didn't hate. The day of the wedding, she only had to get herself and the nephew ready. We left her in my husband's car, the best man drove him, she was late to the wedding and delayed the whole service. We wanted to be able to get a hold of her since she had our son during the day, so we got her an older iPhone on our plan. She hated it and let her nephew destroy it. After 6 months, she finally left. We assumed responsibility for the niece, and we still have contact with her. But it's much more limited and we are much stricter with favors for her. Anytime my husband asks if I still love him, I remind him if I was ever going to leave. It would have been during those hard months. My husband is an amazing hard-working man and the best father I could ask for my son. Next story. Entitled neighbor wants me to clear her driveway from snow. Hello. I've been watching Reddit videos of this stuff for a while, and today I got my own entitled mom story. So I'm a 15-year-old Dutch male and have been dating my 15-year-old girlfriend for about a year now. While we stay at each other's house, I'm more at her parents' house than she is at my parents' house. I always wake up super early and usually just lay there doing nothing. This weekend, it has suddenly been snowing here, so this morning I felt like being nice. Her parents are always the nicest people, and since I'm much more at their house, I wanted to clear the driveway of snow. Every Saturday I work at 7, so I wake up at 6. So now I have gotten pretty good at getting out of bed without waking anybody else up. So I got out of bed and cleared the driveway of snow so her parents could leave for work. As it is, really wasn't possible to leave without it. They both have to work at around 8:30, about a 10-minute drive, but they usually leave a little earlier, especially with the snow. And my online school starts at 8:25. I was just finished with the driveway around 8:15, and there came their neighbor. This is about how it went. Also translated from Dutch to English. The entitled mother says,
Hey, could you do my driveway too?
I'm sorry, my online class starts soon, so I really don't have time for it.
You had the time for their driveway, so you can do mine too.
I had the time for theirs, but I don't have any more time.
Come on, it will take like 20 minutes at max.
I have 5 more minutes. I really can't.
Then why didn't you start earlier?
Because I was just planning this driveway, not yours.
Well, you should have planned to do mine, and you should have gotten up earlier.
I'm sorry, but you could have gotten up earlier yourself.
Have some respect for your elders.
Okay, Dutch version of Karen. I have class now. I have to go. I started to walk inside, but she shouted,
What? You haven't cleared my driveway yet.
And I closed the door. I know it's not super spectacular, but thanks for reading anyways. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.